Greetings everyone, and welcome to episode 6. In episode 5 we had my village that I had come back and found no one in it, so we got to see clips of blowing up the village and completing the job. But now I've done a lot more to that village area, as we'll see in a moment, but it is needing one thing, and it's also been given a slime pit, or rather just an open area where slimes would spawn. And because of that, I now have the ability to make myself some new toys. So, the first of which is going to be a water wheel. Not necessarily for this place because, well, the water wheel or the water here is no problem. So, give me 8 of those. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I now have a water wheel, which I'll place. The other thing is that, well, I have had my bow, and as you can see, it's kind of low on power for a while. So I'm going to need a new bow. And while I do have a few in storage elsewhere, I might as well go ahead and make myself a composite bow. Let's see, string, and a few bones. So here we go. Now the question is, can I remember the recipe? And I think the answer is probably a resounding no. Let's see, I think it had bones. I know there was a piece of string there. And some slime there. I think I've got this backwards. There it is. Composite bow. Slightly better. Easier to work with. A little bit more power. Not that my current bow isn't that bad. It's just not long until it becomes a nice broken piece of wood and string. And actually, while I'm here and got this stuff, I'll make a few more things. But next place is going to be back to my village, or to what was a village. I really haven't made any changes outside. You can't really tell that it's a little larger up there, but the tower has quite a bit to it. But when you walk in, you can immediately see the beginnings of a really big hopper. My mob farm, in which case they all drop into here, and it feeds into there. And I'm just kind of building on the success of the last monster pit that I had beforehand, where everything fell into that area, and I've been kind of building things to drop it in there. I was just going to continue the whole thing by making the entire area just places where I would drop stuff in and it would arrive below and be sorted. Now, of course, I've started in on that sorting, but above there, obviously, the windmill is a great choice for power, although there's not much to be powered except for the elevator, which is kind of out of commission at the moment. But down here I couldn't use a windmill. Why? Because it's covered, and windmills don't work when it's covered. So that is why I needed a water wheel. Otherwise I'd try to do this entire thing without any water wheels at all. Now I just grabbed some chests and realized that there's a problem with chests. And that's that I cannot really place them right next to each other. So I'm going to end up with a big mess down here, but what I'm going to end up with is a place where I put chests next to chests, or hoppers underneath hoppers. But for right now, I'll go ahead and place them And unfortunately there won't be anything here, but I'll get a hopper somewhere. And over here is where I have set up to place the water wheel. So let me go ahead and place that. Hopefully I've got enough space. Maybe not. Okay, 1, 2. Maybe it's because I was standing in the place where I wanted to put the water wheel. See, I've got, oh. I see what's wrong. There we go. And there was all of these hoppers draining. Kind of a silly sound. And yep. It's interesting that the gunpowder, there's only one that's being filtered right now, and that's the first one that filters out gunpowder, and apparently that goes into the lower half of the chest, which is okay for now. And the upper one doesn't filter anything. Now, what really is kind of a bother, and one of the main reasons, there's this, and I haven't figured out why it slowly gets destroyed, but the other thing that I need to do is finish this. Now, while it's all well and good, there is one point, actually there's several points that monsters can fall that, well, if they fall there, they'll survive. So, of course, to help with this, and also to take care of any monsters that spawn in the village itself, I have built a saw, or a place for the saw. Of course, I've got to remember where I put the saw. There it is. So that I can take care of any monsters that fell in there. Now, the scary thing about this is I better not fall in there now. But this should take care of the rest of the monsters. I've been doing it manually, but this should work a lot better. Now, of course, one of the other issues I have with this is the fact that without a wrench, I am going to have to be down here, which means now I've got to struggle my way back out of the trap. And now I have the killing blade for the monsters that don't quite make it all the way through, or that don't die. If they manage to fall in one of the areas that that are basically one water block deep, they've survived. It'd be nice if I saw something drop. I'm going to go ahead and head up there. Now, one thing that I wish would actually happen would be if Flower Child made the stuff that got scraped off the side by the elevator actually pop off. Unfortunately, if I raise this elevator, all these vines are going to be lost and destroyed, so I don't really power this elevator much. But I'll take you upstairs and give you a tour. This is, well, what would have been my villagers, or my village, or the apartment building, or whatever you want to call it. Lots of nice doors, and at least looking like a fairly reasonable build. Yeah, that's a door into my mob trap, so that I can go in It's a fairly simple type mob trap, and you can't really tell it from here because you can't see the floor below it. But the mobs will spawn, and of course the normal area, it's too high. Of course there's some 3 high areas here, but that's open to the top because I need to finish putting the roof on it. And of course they fall through the vine traps and to their death below. And of course all the levels are going to have the vine traps aligned. This is my, well, it's a stewing pot now. One thing that I have done is I have not entered the era of fire. The closest I have is I've got a stewing pot, and I've got the area set up so that maybe at some point in the future I could start stoking fire. But as it is now, these are not hibachis. It's just netherrack that's on fire. Inside, of course, I've got 9 of them, so the stewing pot is much more effective than the one I have in the original base village. And it's nicely covered so that when I do decide to stoke the fire, I'll either take it apart and put in hibachis and wire it up, or I might build a second one over here. Either way, I've got my villager, I've got my big transmission lines, which will eventually be covered up, and of course the step blocks that are covering the door frame. If something ever does allow me to have villagers in this village, I'm going to keep it around, and I'm going to continue with the original design. Alright, so with the destruction I did to this village, it's kind of plain to see. I got to the point here. Well, actually I was doing this whole thing going down, and I would have it all draining into one area, but I didn't finish this side because, well, I got tired of digging and figured I'd do it better when I had some dynamite or some TNT or explosive charges or something a little bit more worthwhile. But I did the other side and finished it into a trap just so the monster pit had some place to go. As for the rest of the village, well, it's pretty much destroyed. This one was intact because, well, I keep my stuff in here. I also have a couple other chests of cobble and stuff that I don't watch. But as for the rest of the village, pretty much destroyed. I figured I might be able to use the water from these in some manner. Especially since I do now actually have hardcore buckets turned on. So, what I'll leave you with is me jumping off a cliff, or a platform.